Daniel Reed stood in Maya Collins' doorway at 2 in the morning, soaking wet, watching her face change as he said the words that would define everything between them. I can't sleep on your couch. The rain hammered against the windows of her small apartment while his 6-year-old daughter waited at his sister's house across town, and Maya's expression shifted from confusion to something deeper. Recognition, maybe, or respect. Most men would have stayed. Most men would have taken the easy comfort she offered and pretended the morning wouldn't complicate everything. But Daniel had spent 3 years learning that half measures destroyed more than they protected, and he refused to begin whatever this was by living invisibly in her home, careful and diminished, while pretending he didn't feel what he felt. If you want to see how one boundary changed 2 lives, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The storm hit Portland with the kind of violence that made the evening news, the type of weather event that meteorologists called historic and unprecedented, while residents just called it terrifying. Daniel Reed had lived in Oregon his entire 30 years and couldn't remember rain like this. Sheets of water so thick the windshield wipers couldn't keep pace, wind that rocked his 10-year-old sedan at every intersection, lightning that turned the sky white every few seconds. He gripped the steering wheel tighter and glanced at Maya Collins in the passenger seat. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her profile illuminated intermittently by the storm's electric fury. Even drenched and exhausted, she maintained the composed professionalism that made her simultaneously respected and isolated at Cascade Solutions, the mid-sized tech consulting firm where they both worked. "You didn't have to do this," Maya said quietly, her voice barely audible over the rain's assault on the car roof. "Your car's dead in the parking lot and you live 40 minutes away," Daniel replied, keeping his eyes on the barely visible road. "What was I supposed to do, leave you there?" "Most people would have." Daniel heard something in her tone that made him glance over. Not bitterness exactly, but a kind of tired acceptance that bothered him more than anger would have. Maya Collins had worked at Cascade Solutions for 2 years, and in that time, Daniel had watched her become precisely what the corporate environment demanded: brilliant, efficient, and increasingly remote. She was the youngest senior analyst in the company, the one called into meetings with executives, the person everyone relied on, but nobody really knew. He knew the isolation that came with that territory. He'd lived it himself before Emma was born and his ex-wife left, and suddenly nothing about career advancement mattered as much as getting home in time for dinner with his daughter. "Turn left here," Maya said, pointing to a residential street that looked more like a river. Daniel navigated the turn carefully, watching the water spray up around the car. Maya's neighborhood was older, the kind of area where working professionals rented affordable apartments in converted houses. The trees were massive here, their branches thrashing violently in the wind. One had already come down, its trunk blocking part of the street. "I'm on the next block," Maya said. "The blue house on the right." Daniel pulled up in front of a Victorian-era home that had been divided into units. The porch light flickered, struggling against the storm. Maya already had her hand on the door handle, preparing to make the dash through the deluge. "Wait," Daniel said, surprising himself. "Let me walk you up." Maya turned to look at him, and for a moment the professional mask slipped. She looked exhausted. "You'll get soaked." "I'm already wet." He grabbed the umbrella from the back seat, a child's umbrella covered in cartoon dinosaurs that Emma had insisted he keep in the car. "Come on." They made the run together, Daniel holding the absurdly small umbrella over Maya while the rain found every gap and soaked them both anyway. Maya fumbled with her keys at the front door, her hands shaking, whether from cold or the adrenaline crash of the drive. Daniel couldn't tell. The door finally opened, and they stumbled into a small entryway that serviced 3 apartments. Maya's was on the 2nd floor. They climbed the narrow stairs, leaving puddles on each step, and when Maya unlocked her apartment door, warm air rolled out to meet them. "Thank you," she said, turning to face him in the doorway. Her dark hair was plastered to her face, her work blouse transparent in places from the rain. She looked nothing like the polished professional who commanded conference rooms. She looked human. "Really, you didn't have to—" A massive crack of thunder cut her off, so close and loud that they both flinched. The lights flickered once, twice, and went out completely. In the sudden darkness, Daniel could hear Maya's sharp intake of breath. "Power's out," he said unnecessarily, pulling out his phone to use as a flashlight. "Perfect." Maya's voice was tight now, stress finally breaking through. "I don't have candles. I haven't had time to... Everything's been so... Hey." Daniel kept his voice calm, the same tone he used when Emma woke from nightmares. "It's okay. Do you have a flashlight? Batteries?" Maya took a shaky breath. "Maybe. In the kitchen. I don't know." Daniel made a decision. "Let me help you look. Then I'll head out." He stepped inside and closed the door against the storm. His phone light revealed a small but meticulously organized apartment. Minimal furniture, everything in its place. The kind of space that belonged to someone who was rarely home. Maya moved toward what he assumed was the kitchen, and Daniel followed, keeping the light steady. They found a flashlight in a drawer, blessedly functional. Maya set it on the counter, and in its upward glow, Daniel could see her more clearly now. She was shivering. "You should change," he said. "Get into dry clothes." "Right. Yes." But she didn't move, just stood there gripping the counter edge. "I'm sorry. I'm not usually like this." "Like what? Human?" Daniel said it gently, without judgment. "It's been a hell of a night. Go change. I'll see if I can find more lights or candles." Maya nodded and disappeared into what must have been her bedroom. Daniel explored the small apartment, finding 2 more flashlights and, surprisingly, a package of emergency candles still in their wrapping under the sink. He was arranging them on the coffee table when Maya returned wearing sweatpants and an oversized university sweater, her hair wrapped in a towel. She looked younger like this, less defended. "You found candles," she said, something like relief in her voice. "Under the sink. Want me to light them?" "Please." Daniel found matches in the same drawer as the candles and soon had a warm glow filling the small living room. The storm continued its assault outside, but inside the apartment felt suddenly intimate, sheltered. "You should probably go," Maya said, but there was no conviction in it. "Before it gets worse." Daniel checked his phone. Almost 11. He'd texted his sister earlier that he might be late. She was watching Emma tonight, a regular arrangement on the nights Daniel worked late. But the weather alert on his screen made him pause. Flash flood warnings, road closures, a recommendation that all residents shelter in place. "I don't think I can," he said, showing Maya the alert. "Half the roads between here and my sister's place are flooded. I'd just be putting myself in danger for no reason." Maya read the alert, then looked up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "So you're stuck here?" "Looks that way, if that's okay with you." She laughed, a short, sharp sound without much humor. "My car's dead, the power's out, there's a historic storm happening, and my colleague just saved me from being stranded at the office. I think okay doesn't really cover it." "Fair point." Daniel glanced around the small space. "I can sleep on the couch. I just need to call my sister, let her know what's happening." "Of course. I should make tea or something. Do you want tea?" "Tea sounds good." Maya moved to the kitchen, and Daniel called his sister. Lisa answered on the first ring, her voice thick with worry. "Danny, where are you? The news is saying..." "I'm fine. I'm at a friend's place. The roads are too dangerous to drive." "A friend?" Lisa's tone sharpened with interest. "What friend?" "A colleague, Maya, from work. Her car broke down. I gave her a ride, and now I'm stuck here until the storm passes." There was a pause. Daniel could practically hear his sister's mind working. "Is Emma asking for me?" "She's asleep. She's fine, Danny. You know she's fine with me. I'm more concerned about you." "I'm safe. Dry. I'll be home as soon as the road's clear." "This Maya," Lisa said carefully. "Is she..." "She's a colleague," Daniel repeated firmly. "That's all. I'll call you in the morning." He ended the call before Lisa could push further. His sister meant well, but since his divorce, she'd been on a quiet campaign to get him dating again, as if 3 years of single parenthood hadn't taught him exactly how complicated his life was. Maya returned from the kitchen carrying 2 mugs. The power was still out, but she'd managed to heat water using a camping stove Daniel hadn't noticed earlier. "You came prepared," he said, accepting the tea. I grew up in Seattle. You learn to have backup plans for when the power goes out. She settled onto the opposite end of the couch, tucking her feet under her. Your sister? Yeah, she's watching my daughter tonight. I wanted to let her know I'm okay. Maya's eyebrows lifted slightly. I didn't know you had a daughter. Emma, she's 6. I've worked with you for 2 years and I didn't know you had a daughter. Maya said it like she was puzzling through a problem. That seems like something I should have known. Daniel shrugged. I keep work and home pretty separate. It's easier that way. Easier how? He considered the question, holding the warm mug between his hands. The candlelight made Maya's apartment feel like a space outside of time, disconnected from their normal roles and routines. Maybe that's why he answered honestly. People make assumptions about single parents, especially single fathers. They assume you're unreliable, that you'll always be leaving early or coming in late, that you can't focus because you're worried about childcare. So I learned not to talk about Emma at work. I get there early, I stay late when I need to, I never let being a father affect my performance. And people don't ask questions. Maya was quiet for a moment, her eyes on her tea. That sounds exhausting. It is what it is. No. She looked up at him, and there was an intensity in her expression that surprised him. It's exhausting. You're allowed to say that. Daniel didn't know what to say to that, so he drank his tea instead. Outside, the storm showed no signs of letting up. Lightning illuminated the windows in brilliant flashes, followed by thunder that rattled the glass. What about you? Daniel asked. You're always at the office late, always the first one in meetings with executives. Don't you ever want to just not? Maya smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. People make assumptions about young women in tech too. They assume you got promoted because someone liked you, not because you earned it. They assume you're emotional, that you can't handle pressure, that you'll want to leave for family reasons eventually. So I learned to be perfect. Never late, never flustered, never anything but completely professional. That sounds exhausting too. It is what it is. Maya echoed his words back at him, and they both smiled at the recognition. They fell into silence then, but it wasn't uncomfortable. The storm created a kind of white noise that made the quiet feel natural. Daniel found himself studying Maya in the candlelight, really looking at her for perhaps the first time. At work, she was all sharp edges and controlled competence. Here, in sweatpants with her hair drying in waves around her face, she looked softer. Real. I should probably try to get some sleep, Maya said eventually, though she didn't move. You can take the couch. I'll get you blankets and a pillow. She stood and went to a closet, returning with bedding that smelled faintly of lavender. Daniel stood to help her, and in the small space they ended up closer than either had intended. Maya looked up at him, and for a moment something shifted in the air between them. Recognition of a different kind, awareness of proximity and possibility. Maya stepped back first. These should be enough. The bathroom's down the hall if you need it. Thanks. Daniel took the blankets and Maya retreated to her bedroom, closing the door with a soft click. He made up the couch, which was too short for his frame but would work well enough for one night. He lay there listening to the storm and thinking about the woman sleeping in the next room, about assumptions and exhaustion, about the walls they'd both built to survive their respective professional worlds, about the strange intimacy of crisis and candlelight. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Be careful, Danny. He didn't respond. Instead, he stared at the ceiling, watching shadows from the candles dance across the plaster, and wondered what exactly his sister thought he needed to be careful about. Sometime after midnight, the storm's fury began to ease. The thunder grew more distant, the rain less violent. Daniel was drifting toward sleep when he heard Maya's bedroom door open. He sat up to find her standing in the hallway, silhouetted by the dim light from the candles. Can't sleep? He asked quietly. The quiet woke me up. After all that noise, the silence feels loud. She moved into the living room, sitting in the armchair near the couch. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. You didn't. I was still awake. They sat in the soft darkness, and Daniel had the strange sense that they were the only two people in the world, that the storm had washed away everything outside this small apartment and left only this moment, only them. Can I ask you something? Maya's voice was careful, tentative in a way he'd never heard from her at work. Sure. Why did you really offer me a ride tonight? You could have just said no. Most people would have. Daniel thought about that. I don't know. You looked tired, and when I mentioned the storm, you just nodded like you were already resigned to dealing with it alone. I guess I didn't want you to have to. Just like that? No ulterior motive? Just like that. He paused. Is it really that unusual? Someone just being decent? Maya was quiet for a long moment. In my experience, yes. The sadness in those words settled between them like a physical presence. Daniel found himself angry on her behalf, angry at whatever experiences had taught her to expect so little, to be surprised by basic kindness. That's not right, he said finally. You deserve people who show up for you, not because they want something, just because you matter. He saw her eyes glisten in the candlelight, saw her blink rapidly. You don't even know me. I know you work harder than anyone else in that office. I know you're brilliant at what you do. I know you take your coffee black with 2 sugars, and you do this thing with your pen when you're thinking. You tap it against your chin 3 times, always 3 times. I know you're careful with people, like you're always expecting them to disappoint you. And I know that's probably because they usually do. Maya was staring at him now, her professional composure completely gone. You notice all that? I notice a lot of things. The silence that followed felt charged, significant. Maya drew her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them in a gesture that made her look young and uncertain. I don't know how to do this, she said quietly. Do what? This. Whatever this is. I don't let people in. I don't know how. Daniel understood then that they were standing at the edge of something, that the next words mattered, that how he responded would determine whether the door between them stayed open or closed forever. You don't have to know how, he said gently. You just have to decide if you want to try. Maya looked at him for a long moment, and Daniel could see her thinking, calculating risks the way she did with everything. He recognized the impulse. He did the same thing, had built his whole life around careful decisions and protective boundaries. I made pasta earlier, Maya said suddenly, before the power went out. I was going to eat it when I got home, but then everything happened. It's probably still warm. Are you hungry? It was such an abrupt shift that it took Daniel a moment to process. Then he understood. This was how Maya said yes when she couldn't say the words directly. This was her trying. I could eat, he said, matching her casual tone while his heart did something complicated in his chest. They moved to the kitchen together, and Maya pulled containers from the refrigerator, pasta with vegetables, homemade sauce, fresh bread. She'd clearly spent time on this meal, had planned to come home to something comforting after a long day. You cook, Daniel observed, surprised. It's one of the few things I do that isn't about work. It helps me think. She was heating the pasta on the camping stove, her movements efficient and practiced. My grandmother taught me. She said cooking for yourself was an act of self-respect. Smart woman. She was. Maya's voice softened. She died last year. Sometimes I still reach for my phone to call her. I'm sorry, she would have liked this. The storm, being stuck together, making the best of it. She used to say the universe puts people in your path when you need them. Maya paused, then added quietly, I'm starting to think she might have been right. They ate at the small kitchen table by flashlight, and the conversation flowed easier now, about Emma, about Maya's childhood in Seattle, about dreams they'd had before life became about survival and strategy. Daniel learned that Maya had wanted to be a teacher before her student loans made corporate work a necessity. Maya learned that Daniel had planned to be a photographer before Emma was born, and priorities shifted. Do you regret it? Maya asked. Giving up photography? No. Daniel didn't even have to think about it. Emma's the best thing that ever happened to me. Everything else is just details. Your ex-wife must be something special to have made a man like you. Daniel's laugh was bitter. My ex-wife left when Emma was 6 months old. Said motherhood wasn't what she expected. Said I'd changed too much, that I cared more about the baby than about her. She signed away custody and moved to California. We haven't heard from her in over 5 years. Maya's hand moved across the table, covering his. The gesture was instinctive, comforting. I'm sorry. That must have been devastating. It was. He looked down at her hand on his, small and warm. But it taught me something important. It taught me that the people who matter don't run when things get hard. They stay. They figure it out. Their eyes met across the table, and Daniel saw understanding there. Saw Maya processing what he'd said, how it applied to this moment between them. I run, Maya said quietly. When things get hard, when people get too close, I run. I make myself small and invisible, and I run. I know. Then why are you still here? Daniel turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. Because maybe you're tired of running, and maybe I'm tired of being alone. Maya's breath caught, and for a moment Daniel thought she might pull away, might retreat back behind the professional walls he'd watched her build. But instead, she held on tighter. I don't want to ruin this, she whispered. Whatever this is, I don't want to ruin it by being too much or not enough or… Maya. He said her name like a prayer, like a promise. You could never be too much, and you're already enough. You've always been enough. A tear escaped down her cheek, and she laughed, shaky and surprised. I don't cry. I never cry. It's just us here. You're allowed to be whatever you need to be. They sat like that, hands linked across the table, while the storm's last gasps rattled the windows and the candles burned lower. Eventually, Maya stood, still holding his hand, and led him back to the living room. Stay, she said softly. Not on the couch. Stay with me. I don't want to be alone tonight. And Daniel, who had spent 3 years being careful, being responsible, being everything his daughter needed and nothing for himself, felt every protective instinct war with the longing he'd been denying since the moment Maya looked at him with surprise when he'd offered her a ride. Maya, he started, but she shook her head. I'm not asking for promises or forever. I'm just asking for tonight, please. He should say no. He knew he should say no. This was his colleague. This violated every professional boundary. This had complicated written all over it. And yet, I can't sleep on your couch, he heard himself say, the words surprising them both. Maya's face fell, confusion and hurt flickering across her features. I thought, I can't sleep on your couch, Daniel repeated, stepping closer, because if I stay, it won't be halfway. It won't be careful or compartmentalized or something we pretend didn't happen on Monday morning. If I stay, it's because this matters, because you matter. And I don't do half measures anymore, Maya. I can't. Understanding dawned in her eyes, followed by something that looked like hope. What are you saying? I'm saying if you want me to stay, I need you to understand what you're asking for. Not just tonight, not just comfort during a storm. I'm saying I need to know this is real for you because it's already real for me, and I have a daughter to think about. I can't bring someone into our lives unless I know they're staying. Maya's eyes widened, and Daniel could see her processing everything he'd said, the weight of it, the seriousness, the vulnerability he'd just handed her. I've known you for 2 years, she said slowly. And in all that time, I've never met anyone like you. I've never felt like anyone actually saw me until tonight. Until you. She took a shaky breath. I can't promise I'll be perfect at this. I can't promise I won't panic or try to run. But I can promise that I want to try. I want to stay. Daniel felt something unlock in his chest. Something he'd kept carefully guarded since the day his ex-wife walked out. Since the day he'd learned that loving someone didn't guarantee they'd love you back the same way. Then I'll stay, he said quietly. But not how you're thinking. Maya frowned, confused again. Daniel smiled and gestured to the couch he'd made up earlier. I'm staying here, on this couch, because you're exhausted and you've had a hell of a night, and what you need is sleep, not me making this complicated before we've even figured out what this is. He saw her start to protest and held up a hand. I'm staying in your apartment. I'm not going anywhere. But tomorrow morning, when you wake up, I want you to know that nothing happened you might regret. I want you to know that this, us, is built on something real, not just crisis and proximity. Maya stared at him for a long moment, and then she did something that surprised him. She laughed, really laughed, the sound bright and genuine and completely unguarded. You're serious. Completely. You're really going to sleep on the couch after that whole speech about not doing half measures? Yes. Because you respect me too much to rush this. Because I respect us too much to rush this. Maya shook her head, still smiling. You're either the best man I've ever met or completely insane. Can I be both? She stepped forward and kissed him then, softly, briefly. A promise rather than a demand. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For seeing me. For staying. For being exactly who you are. She went to her bedroom then, and this time when she closed the door, Daniel heard something different in the sound. Not retreat, but trust. He lay down on the too small couch and stared at the ceiling, his heart still racing, his mind replaying every moment of the strangest, most significant night of his life. Outside, the storm had finally passed, leaving only the soft patter of ordinary rain and the first hints of dawn in the sky. His phone buzzed with another text from Lisa. I hope you know what you're doing. Daniel smiled and typed back, Me too. Then he closed his eyes and slept better than he had in 3 years, alone on a couch in a colleague's apartment, knowing that everything had changed and nothing could go back to the way it was before. When morning came, they would have to figure out what this meant, how to navigate the professional complications, how to build something real in the spaces between their carefully constructed lives. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, they had both chosen to stay. And that was enough. Daniel woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, he couldn't place where he was. Then memory flooded back. The storm. Maya. Everything he'd said in the candlelight. He sat up, his back protesting the couch's dimensions, and checked his phone. 7:30. A dozen messages from Lisa, ranging from concerned to curious to conspiratorial. He ignored them all and followed the coffee smell to the kitchen. Maya stood at the counter, already dressed in fresh work clothes, her hair pulled back in the neat bun she wore at the office. She looked every inch the polished professional he knew from Cascade Solutions, except for the uncertainty in her eyes when she turned and saw him standing there. Morning, she said, her voice carefully neutral. I made coffee. I wasn't sure how you take it. Black is fine. Daniel moved into the kitchen, hyper-aware of the space between them, of how different this felt from the intimacy of last night. You're up early. I'm always up early. She poured him a mug, her hand steady. The power came back on around 6. I checked the news. Most of the roads are clear now. A few trees down, some flooding in the usual spots, but nothing major. So I can get home. Yes. She handed him the coffee, and their fingers brushed. Both of them noticed. Neither acknowledged it. I called a tow service for my car. They said they can get to it this afternoon. They stood in her small kitchen drinking coffee like strangers making small talk, and Daniel felt the walls going back up between them, felt Maya retreating into the safety of professionalism, felt the vulnerability of last night being carefully packed away. Maya, he said quietly, we should talk about work. She spoke quickly, her words tumbling over his. About how to handle this. People saw you give me a ride. If anyone asks, I'll tell them the truth. You needed a ride, the storm got bad. I stayed until it was safe to leave. And the rest of it? The rest of it is ours. Nobody's business but ours. Maya set down her coffee mug, her composure cracking slightly. I don't know how to do this, Daniel. I meant what I said last night, but in the daylight, with work in a few hours, I don't know how to... Hey. He moved closer, setting his own mug aside. Look at me. She did, and he saw fear there. Not of him, but of everything this represented, of all the ways it could go wrong. We don't have to figure it all out right now, Daniel said. We don't have to have all the answers before 9 a.m. We just have to be honest with each other. I'm terrified, Maya admitted. I'm terrified this will ruin everything. Your life, my career, the way people see us. I'm terrified I'll disappoint you or Emma or Stop. Daniel took her hands, the gesture familiar now after last night. You're doing that thing where you catastrophize every possible outcome before anything's even happened. I know, because I do it too. Then tell me how you're not terrified right now. I didn't say I wasn't terrified. I said we don't have to have all the answers. He squeezed her hands gently. I have to go home, check on Emma, talk to my sister. You have to get your car fixed, probably do 17 things you planned for today. But tonight, if you want, we could have dinner. Somewhere quiet, just us. No storm, no crisis, just two people getting to know each other properly. Maya's expression softened. You're asking me on a date. I'm asking you on a date. After everything that happened last night, you're starting with a date. I told you I don't do half measures. Daniel smiled. That includes doing this right. She laughed, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. Okay, yes, dinner. I'll text you later with details. Daniel? She stopped him as he turned to leave. Thank you for last night, for staying the way you did. For not, she struggled for words, for treating this like it matters. It does matter. You matter. He kissed her forehead, a gesture of tenderness rather than passion, and left before the moment could become complicated again. But as he drove home through streets littered with storm debris, he couldn't stop smiling. Lisa was waiting for him when he walked through her front door, her arms crossed and her expression knowing. Well, 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 the prodigal brother returns. Don't start. Oh, I'm absolutely starting. You spent the night at a woman's apartment. The roads were flooded. You saw the weather reports. And now you're glowing like a teenager. Don't think I don't recognize that look, Danny. I wore that look when I met Marcus. Daniel sighed and dropped onto Lisa's couch, the same couch where he'd slept countless nights during the divorce, during the early impossible days of single fatherhood. It's complicated. It always is. Lisa sat beside him, her teasing tone gentling. Is she good to you? I barely know her. That's the complicated part. But you want to know her. Yeah, I really do. Then what's the problem? Daniel ran his hands through his hair. She's my colleague. We work together. If it goes wrong, you're both adults who can handle it professionally. And if it goes right, Lisa bumped his shoulder. Then you get to stop being alone, Danny. You get to have something for yourself. I have Emma. Emma is your daughter, not your entire identity. You're allowed to want more. Lisa's voice turned serious. You've spent 3 years being the perfect father, and you are. Emma's happy and loved and thriving. But you're also 30 years old, and you haven't had a real relationship since Sarah left. At some point, Danny, you have to let yourself live again. Before Daniel could respond, the thunder of small feet announced Emma's arrival. She launched herself at him with the confidence of a child who knew she'd be caught, her dark curls flying. Daddy, Aunt Lisa said there was a big storm. Did you see it? Was it scary? Daniel caught her and pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. It was pretty big, sweetheart, but I was safe. Aunt Lisa said you stayed at a friend's house. That's right. Emma pulled back to study his face with the seriousness only a 6-year-old could muster. Was it a girlfriend? Lisa choked on her coffee. Daniel shot her a look and focused on his daughter. Yes, it was. A friend from work. Is she nice? Very nice. Is she pretty? Emma, because you should have a girlfriend, Daddy, like how Aunt Lisa has Uncle Marcus. Then you wouldn't be lonely. Daniel's heart clenched. I'm not lonely, sweetheart. I have you. But I'm a kid. You need a grown-up friend, too. Emma said this with the absolute certainty of childhood logic, then squirmed out of his arms. I'm going to go play. Bye, Daddy. She disappeared as quickly as she'd arrived, leaving Daniel and Lisa staring at each other. Out of the mouths of babes, Lisa said quietly. Daniel didn't trust himself to respond. Instead, he stood. I should get her home. We have things to do today. Danny? Lisa caught his arm. Emma's right, you know. You do deserve to have someone. And if this Maya makes you look the way you looked when you walked in here, then maybe she's worth the complication. Daniel spent the day with Emma. Playground, lunch, grocery shopping, all the ordinary rituals of their weekend routine. But his mind kept drifting back to Maya, to candlelight and honesty, to the feel of her hand in his and the vulnerability in her voice when she'd asked him to stay. He texted her around 3. There's a small Italian place on Morrison Street. Quiet, good food, no one from work goes there. 7 o'clock? Her response came quickly. Perfect. Should I meet you there? I'll pick you up. 6:30. A pause, then, Daniel, read. Are you trying to be a gentleman? Always. Another pause, longer this time. I'm really glad you stayed last night, even on the couch. Daniel smiled at his phone. Me too. That evening, after Emma was asleep at Lisa's again and he'd changed clothes 3 times like a nervous teenager, Daniel pulled up in front of Maya's building. She was waiting on the porch, wearing a simple blue dress that made his breath catch. Her hair was down, falling in waves around her shoulders, and she looked nothing like the corporate professional he'd worked beside for 2 years. She looked like herself, real and uncertain and beautiful. Hi, she said, sliding into the passenger seat. Hi yourself, you look amazing. She blushed, actually blushed. You clean up pretty well too. The restaurant was everything Daniel had promised. Small, intimate, the kind of place where conversation stayed private and the lighting was forgiving. They ordered wine and pasta, and for the first few minutes they danced around the elephant in the room with small talk about the storm cleanup and weekend plans. Finally, Maya set down her wine glass and looked at him directly. We're being ridiculous, aren't we? Pretending this is a normal first date when we've already seen each other at our most vulnerable. What do you want to talk about? Everything, nothing. I don't know. She laughed nervously. I want to know about Emma. I want to know how you ended up at Cascade Solutions when you wanted to be a photographer. I want to know what you're thinking right now, looking at me like that. Like what? Like I'm not terrifying. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. You are terrifying. You're brilliant and guarded, and you have every defense mechanism I've ever seen deployed at a professional level. But underneath all that, you're also kind and lonely, and so damn brave for showing up here tonight when I know every instinct is telling you to run. Maya's eyes glistened. How do you do that? How do you see through everything so easily? Because I'm the same way. I've spent 3 years being invisible, being just competent enough to keep my job but never standing out enough that people ask questions about my life. I know what it looks like when someone's hiding. Their food arrived, giving them both a moment to collect themselves. As they ate, the conversation flowed easier. Daniel talked about Emma, about the terrifying joy of single fatherhood, about the way his daughter had rebuilt his entire understanding of what mattered. Maya talked about her grandmother, about the pressure of being the first in her family to finish college, about the isolation of always being the youngest and only woman in rooms full of men who questioned her competence. Is that why you're so careful at work? Daniel asked. The walls? The distance? I learned early that being friendly was seen as weakness. Being warm made people think I wasn't serious, so I became ice. She paused, looking down at her plate. And then I woke up one day and realized I didn't know how to be anything else. Even outside of work, I was still performing. Until last night. Until last night, she agreed quietly. Something about the storm, about you. I couldn't maintain it. And the terrifying part is that it felt good. Being real felt good. Then be real now, with me. What are you afraid of? Maya took a long breath. I'm afraid that you're going to realize I'm not worth the complication. That when you really get to know me, you'll see all the broken pieces I keep hidden, and you'll decide it's too much. And I'm afraid that if I let myself care about you, if I let myself hope for something real, it'll hurt worse than anything when it ends. What makes you so sure it'll end? Everything ends, Daniel. Everyone leaves eventually. Not everyone, he said it firmly, holding her gaze. Your grandmother didn't leave by choice. Your family didn't abandon you. They're just living their own lives. And I'm not going anywhere unless you push me away. And if I do? Push you away? What if it's the only thing I know how to do when things get hard? Then I'll push back, gently, but I'll push back. Daniel squeezed her hand. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Maya. I'm asking you to try. That's all. Just try. She was quiet for a long time, her thumb tracing patterns on his palm. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I haven't told anyone this, but last year, after my grandmother died, I had a panic attack at work. Full breakdown in the bathroom. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just fell apart. And the whole time, all I could think was that if anyone saw me like that, my career would be over. So I pulled myself together, fixed my makeup, and went back to my desk. Acted like nothing happened. Maya, I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because you asked me to be real. And that's real. I'm not always strong. I'm not always in control. Sometimes I'm barely holding it together, and I'm terrified that one day the facade will crack completely and everyone will see. Daniel stood up, pulling money from his wallet and leaving it on the table. Come on. What are you doing? We're leaving, right now. Maya looked panicked. Did I say too much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. No. Daniel came around to her side of the table and offered his hand. You said exactly the right thing. And now we're leaving because I want to talk to you properly, and I can't do that here. She took his hand, confusion and trust warring in her expression. Daniel led her outside to where his car was parked, but instead of getting in, he turned to face her. You had a panic attack alone in a bathroom, and you thought it meant you were weak, he said quietly. You know what I think? I think it means you're human. I think it means you were grieving and you needed help, and you didn't let yourself have it. And I think the strongest thing you could do right now is stop trying to be perfect and just be you. I don't know how to do that. Then learn, with me. Let me see the panic attacks and the grief and all the messy, complicated parts you think you have to hide. Let me prove to you that I'm not going anywhere. Maya's face crumpled and she pressed her hands over her mouth like she could hold back the emotion. This is a first date, Daniel. We're not supposed to have these conversations on a first date. We're not supposed to spend the night together before the first date either, but we did that backward too. He pulled her closer, his voice gentle. There's no rule book here, Maya. There's just us, figuring it out as we go. She leaned into him then, her forehead resting against his chest, and he felt her shake with silent tears. He held her in the parking lot while the evening traffic passed and the restaurant's warm light spilled onto the sidewalk, and he marveled at how someone so strong had learned to believe she had to carry everything alone. I'm getting makeup on your shirt, Maya mumbled against his chest. I don't care. People are probably staring. Let them. She pulled back, wiping at her eyes with shaky hands. I must look terrible. You look beautiful. And he meant it. She looked raw and real, and more herself than he'd ever seen her. What now? She asked. Where do we go from here? Daniel considered. Ice cream? She blinked. What? There's a place 2 blocks from here, best ice cream in Portland. We could walk there, get disgustingly sweet dessert, and talk about something that isn't heavy for a while. What do you say? A smile broke through Maya's tears. Ice cream on a first date. How very wholesome of you, Mr. Reed. I have a 6-year-old. Wholesome is my default setting. They walked to the ice cream parlor hand in hand, and Maya told him about her apartment search, about the 3 months she'd spent looking for a place that felt safe and affordable. Daniel told her about Emma's latest obsession with dinosaurs, about the elaborate bedtime stories he'd been inventing featuring a T-Rex named Terry. She sounds amazing, Maya said softly. She is. She's everything good I've ever done in my life. Are you nervous? About me meeting her? Daniel stopped walking, turning to face her. Is that something you want, to meet her? Eventually. If this becomes something real. Maya's voice was careful, testing the waters. I know it's early. I know we've only just started this. But if we're being honest, I need to know if that's a possibility. Because if Emma's not comfortable with me, or if you don't want me in that part of your life, I need to know now before Before you what? Before I fall completely in love with you, Maya finished quietly. The words hung between them, honest and vulnerable and terrifying. Daniel felt his heart do something complicated in his chest. I'd like you to meet her, he said, when we're ready, when it feels right. Not because I'm rushing this, but because Emma's my whole world. And if you're going to be in my life, you'll be in hers too. That's not negotiable. I wouldn't want it any other way. They got their ice cream, chocolate chip for Daniel, salted caramel for Maya, and found a bench in a small park nearby. The evening was cooling down, the sky turning deep blue with the last light of day. Can I ask you something? Maya said between bites of ice cream. Why did you really sleep on the couch last night? Daniel smiled. I told you why. You told me the noble reason. I want to know the real reason. He thought about how to explain it, how to put words to the instinct that had driven that decision. When Sarah left, she said I'd changed, that I wasn't the man she'd married. And she was right. I had changed. Emma changed me. But Sarah made it sound like that was a bad thing, like I'd somehow failed by becoming a father first and a husband second. That's not failure. That's being a good parent. I know that now. But for a long time I believed her version. I believed that I was somehow deficient because I couldn't be the carefree guy she'd fallen for while also being the father Emma needed. So I made a choice. I chose Emma. And I promised myself that I'd never again let anyone make me feel like I had to apologize for that choice or hide parts of myself to make them comfortable. Maya was listening intently, her ice cream forgotten. What does that have to do with the couch? If I'd stayed in your bed last night, if we'd rushed into something physical before we'd built the foundation, it would have been easy to write it off later as just the storm, just proximity, just two lonely people seeking comfort. But sleeping on the couch? That was deliberate. That was me saying this matters enough to do it right. That was me refusing to take the easy path and demanding that we build something real instead. And if I'd been insulted, if I thought you were rejecting me, then we would have talked about it, like we're doing now. Daniel set aside his ice cream and took her hand. Maya, I don't play games. I don't have time for them, and I don't have patience for them. My life is complicated enough with a full-time job and a 6-year-old daughter and an ex-wife who sends a card twice a year like that makes up for abandoning her child. I need someone who can handle honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's not what you want to hear. I can handle honesty. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, you've spent 2 years at Cascade Solutions being whoever people needed you to be. I need to know that with me, you'll be yourself. Messy, complicated, all of it. Maya was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was small but steady. I don't know if I remember how to be myself. I've been performing for so long, I'm not sure where the performance ends, and I begin. Then we'll figure it out together. Daniel pulled her closer on the bench. Start small. Tell me one thing that's completely true. One thing you never tell anyone. She thought about it, her brow furrowed. I hate my job. What? I'm good at it. Really good at it, but I hate it. Every day I wake up and force myself to care about quarterly projections and client retention and corporate strategy, and all I really want to do is teach high school English. I want to help kids discover books that change their lives. I want to have discussions about literature and meaning and how stories make us human. But I make 6 figures doing what I do now, and I have student loans, and teaching would pay barely half of what I make, so I'm stuck. Daniel felt something shift in his understanding of her. Saw the cage she'd built for herself out of practical necessity and fear of failure. That's not one small thing. That's your whole life. I know, and I've never told anyone because saying it out loud makes it real. Makes me have to face the fact that I'm choosing money over happiness every single day. What if you didn't have to choose? What if there was a way to do both? There isn't. I've looked. Trust me. I've spent hours calculating budgets and looking at teaching positions and trying to find a way to make the numbers work. They don't. Daniel hesitated, then decided to take the risk. What if you didn't have to carry the financial burden alone? Maya's eyes widened. Daniel, we've been on one date. You can't. I'm not proposing or asking you to move in or anything crazy. I'm just saying that sometimes the math changes when you're not doing it alone. And maybe, eventually, if this becomes what I think it's becoming, that's something we could figure out together. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brilliant and kind, and you've spent years putting everyone else's expectations ahead of your own dreams. I know you light up when you talk about teaching in a way you never do when you talk about client presentations, and I know that life's too short to spend it doing work that makes you miserable. Maya stood abruptly, pacing away from the bench. This is too much. We can't talk about futures and shared finances on a first date. We can't. She stopped, her back to him. What if you're wrong about me? What if I'm not who you think I am? Daniel stood and moved to her, turning her gently to face him. Then I'll be wrong, and we'll deal with it. But I don't think I am wrong, Maya. I think you've been hiding so long you've forgotten what it feels like when someone actually sees you. And you see me? I'm trying to, if you'll let me. She searched his face, and whatever she found there seemed to satisfy something in her. Okay. Okay? Okay, let's try this. Really try. No more hiding, no more performing, just us. Messy and complicated and honest. That's all I'm asking. They stood in the cooling evening air, and Daniel watched Maya process everything: the vulnerability, the promise, the terror of being truly known. He understood that terror. He'd lived it for 3 years, had built his entire life around being invisible enough to avoid judgment. But standing here with her, watching her choose bravery over comfort, he thought, maybe they could both learn to be seen. I should probably tell you, Maya said quietly, that Monday morning is going to be weird. Probably. People will notice if we show up together. We're not showing up together. We're showing up as two colleagues who coincidentally gave each other rides during a storm. And if people ask questions, we tell them it's private, politely but firmly. We don't owe anyone our story. Maya leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For being patient, for not pushing, for seeing the mess and staying anyway. Daniel kissed the top of her head. Always. They stood like that until the park lights came on, until the evening shifted into night. And when Daniel finally drove Maya home, when he walked her to her door and kissed her goodnight with a tenderness that promised everything without demanding anything, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt hopeful. And on Monday morning, when they arrived at work separately and maintained professional distance, when people asked casual questions about the storm and they gave casual answers, when Maya caught his eye across a conference room and smiled small and private and real, he felt certain. They were going to be okay. It would be complicated and messy and nothing like the safe, careful lives they'd built. But they would be okay. Together. The careful distance lasted exactly 3 weeks before everything shifted again. Daniel had been meticulous about maintaining professional boundaries at work, arriving separately, keeping conversations task-focused in front of others, never letting his eyes linger too long when Maya presented in meetings. But outside the office, they'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Dinner twice a week, long phone calls after Emma went to bed, slow, careful steps towards something that felt increasingly inevitable. Maya had even met Emma, though it had been carefully orchestrated as a coincidence at the park. Emma had taken to her immediately, demanding that the nice lady push her on the swings, and Daniel had watched Maya's careful composure melt into genuine delight as his daughter chattered about dinosaurs and her favorite books. She's wonderful, Maya had said later after Emma was distracted by the slide. She's so much like you, kind and curious and completely herself. She likes you. That's not something that happens often. Does that scare you? Terrifies me, Daniel had admitted. But in a good way? But now, standing in the hallway outside the conference room where Maya was being eviscerated by Stephen Chen, their department's most notorious executive, Daniel felt a different kind of terror. He could hear Stephen's voice through the door, sharp and condescending, and while he couldn't make out the words, the tone was unmistakable. The door opened and Maya emerged, her face perfectly composed but her hands shaking slightly as she gripped her tablet. She walked past Daniel without acknowledging him, her pace just a fraction too fast to be casual. Daniel waited 30 seconds, then followed. He found her in the empty break room on the 4th floor, the one nobody used because the coffee machine had been broken for months. She was standing at the window, her back rigid, her breathing too controlled. Maya. Not now. Her voice was tight. Please, Daniel. Not now. He should have listened, should have given her space, but something in her posture, the way she was holding herself together by sheer force of will, made him step closer instead. What did Chen say to you? It doesn't matter. It clearly does matter. You're shaking. She spun to face him, and he saw fury in her eyes. Not at him, but at something deeper. He said my presentation was amateur, said I clearly didn't understand the client's needs, said maybe I wasn't ready for senior-level accounts after all. Her voice cracked slightly. He said it in front of the entire leadership team, Daniel. He humiliated me. Your presentation was brilliant. I was there. Everyone knows it was brilliant. Everyone except the person whose opinion actually matters. Maya pressed her hands to her face. I worked on that presentation for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of late nights and research and rehearsing, and he tore it apart in 5 minutes. Daniel wanted to touch her, to pull her close, and promise it would be okay. But they were at work, and the walls were glass, and anyone could walk by. So he stayed where he was and kept his voice low. Chen's an asshole. Everyone knows that. This isn't about your work. It's about him asserting dominance. That doesn't make it hurt less. Maya dropped her hands, and he saw tears threatening to spill. I'm so tired, Daniel. I'm tired of proving myself over and over, tired of being perfect and polite while men like Stephen Chen get to be mediocre and cruel. I'm so tired. This time Daniel did move closer, positioning himself so his back was to the door, blocking the view of anyone who might pass by. Come here. We're at work. I don't care. Come here. She collapsed into him, and he held her while she cried quietly against his chest, her whole body trembling with the effort of keeping silent. He stroked her hair and murmured reassurances he wasn't sure either of them believed. I'm getting your shirt wet again, she mumbled, starting to be a pattern with us. She laughed despite herself, a watery sound. I'm sorry. I'm being ridiculous. You're being human. There's a difference. Maya pulled back, wiping at her eyes. I need to go fix my makeup. I have a client call in 20 minutes. Cancel it. I can't cancel a client call, Daniel. You can. You're allowed to have a bad day. You're allowed to take time when you need it. That's easy for you to say. You're not... She stopped, looking stricken. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. I'm not what? A woman? The youngest person in leadership? The one everyone's watching to see if I'll fail? Daniel said it gently, without accusation. You're right. I'm not those things. But I know what it's like to feel like you can't show weakness. And I'm telling you that holding it all in until you break completely isn't strength, Maya. It's just slow-motion collapse. She stared at him, and something in her expression shifted. When did you get so wise? Around the same time I realized that being a good father meant teaching Emma it's okay to ask for help. Took me about 2 years and a minor breakdown in a grocery store parking lot to figure that out. You had a breakdown in a parking lot? Emma was 2. She'd been screaming for an hour. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night in weeks. My ex-wife had sent divorce papers that morning, and I sat in that parking lot and cried while my daughter finally fell asleep in her car seat. He paused. A woman knocked on my window. I thought she was going to call the cops or child services or something. Instead, she handed me a coffee and said, "It gets easier. I promise it gets easier." Then she walked away. Maya's eyes were wide. Did it get easier? Eventually, but only after I stopped pretending I had everything under control and actually asked for help. Called Lisa Moore. Joined a single parents group, saw a therapist for a while. He touched her face gently, wiping away a stray tear with his thumb. The point is, you don't have to carry everything alone. Not anymore. What are you saying? I'm saying cancel the client call. Tell them you're sick. Take the afternoon off. Come to my place. Emma's at school until 3. And just breathe for a few hours. Daniel, we can't. People will notice if we both leave. Let them notice. Let them wonder. I don't care anymore, Maya. I'm tired of watching you hurt yourself trying to maintain appearances. She searched his face, and he could see her weighing options, calculating risks. It was the same look she got during negotiations, during high-pressure presentations. He hated that she had to approach her own well-being like a business decision. Okay, she said finally. Okay, yes. I'll cancel the call. They left separately. Maya first, claiming a sudden migraine. Daniel 20 minutes later citing a family emergency. He knew people would talk, knew that showing up at work separately didn't mean much when you left at the same time. But watching Maya's hands shake as she'd gathered her things, seeing the exhaustion in her eyes, he'd stopped caring about office gossip. His apartment was small but comfortable, the kind of space that showed evidence of a child everywhere, crayon drawings on the refrigerator, a basket of toys in the corner, a pink backpack hanging by the door. Maya stood in the middle of the living room looking lost. I don't know what to do now, she admitted. I don't know how to just stop. Sit down. I'll make tea. I don't want tea. Then what do you want? She looked at him, and the vulnerability in her expression broke something open in his chest. I want to stop pretending. I want to stop being strong and competent and perfect. Just for a few hours, I want to be a mess without consequences. Daniel set down his keys and moved to her. Then be a mess. Right here, with me. No consequences, no judgment, just us. Maya crumbled then, really crumbled, sinking onto his couch and pulling her knees to her chest like she could make herself smaller, less visible. Daniel sat beside her and pulled her close, and she cried. Not the careful, controlled tears from the office, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. He held her through it, saying nothing, just being present while she released months, maybe years, of pressure she'd been holding. Eventually the crying subsided into hiccups, then into shaky breathing, then into silence. I think I got snot on your shirt, Maya said, her voice muffled against his chest. It'll wash. Your shirt budget must be astronomical at this point. He laughed, and she lifted her head to look at him. Her eyes were swollen, her face blotchy, her carefully applied makeup completely destroyed. She looked beautiful. What? She asked, catching his expression. You look like yourself. I look like a disaster. Same thing. He tucked her hair behind her ear. This is you, Maya, messy and real and completely yourself. This is the person I'm falling for. She went very still. Falling for? Yeah, falling for. Pretty hard, actually. He said it simply, without drama, just stating a fact. I know it's fast. I know we said we'd take things slow, but I need you to know that what I feel for you isn't casual. This isn't just keeping each other company. Maya's eyes filled with fresh tears. I'm falling for you too, and it terrifies me. Why? Because you matter. Emma matters. This whole thing matters so much that the idea of losing it, of losing you, feels impossible to survive. Daniel cupped her face in his hands. Then don't lose it. Don't lose us. Stay. Fight. Stop running before things get hard. I don't know if I know how to do that. Learn. With me. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. We'll figure it out together. She kissed him then, and it was different from the tender goodbye kisses they'd shared before. This was desperate and honest and full of everything they'd been carefully holding back. Daniel responded in kind, pulling her closer, letting her feel how much he wanted this, wanted her, without reservation. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Maya's expression was dazed. We should probably talk about this, about what this means. We should, Daniel agreed. But first you need to eat something. When's the last time you had a real meal? She thought about it. Yesterday, maybe the day before. I've been living on coffee and anxiety. That explains a lot. He stood, pulling her up with him. Come on, I'm making you lunch. You don't have to. Maya, let me take care of you, please. She nodded, something softening in her expression. Okay. Daniel made sandwiches while Maya explored his apartment, studying the photos on the walls, mostly of Emma, a few of him and Lisa, one old picture of his parents. She paused at Emma's artwork gallery on the refrigerator. She's talented, Maya said, touching a crayon drawing of what appeared to be a dinosaur family. That's her favorite, the T-Rex family. There's Terry the dad, Emma the daughter, and that purple one is supposed to be you. Maya turned to stare at him. Me? She drew it last week, after we saw you at the park. She told me the purple dinosaur is Daddy's friend Maya, who smells like flowers and has a nice smile. Daniel felt his chest tighten. I didn't tell her to draw you into her family picture, Maya. She just did. Maya's hand went to her mouth. Daniel, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that you're not the only one who's falling. Emma is too, in her own way. They ate lunch sitting on his couch, and Maya told him about her morning, about Stephen Chen's condescension, about the way the other executives had sat silent while he criticized her, about the feeling of being simultaneously hypervisible and completely invisible. It's like they see me, but they don't see me, she explained. They see a young woman who must have gotten lucky or slept her way up or doesn't really deserve to be there. They don't see the work, the late nights, the sacrifices. They just see someone they can dismiss. Have you talked to HR? That kind of behavior, And say what? That a senior executive was mean to me? That he criticized my presentation? Maya shook her head. It's not actionable, Daniel. It's just the daily erosion of being a woman in a male-dominated field. Death by 1,000 cuts. That's not okay. No, it's not. But it's reality. Daniel was quiet for a moment, thinking, what if you documented it? Every instance of inappropriate behavior, every undermining comment, every time someone takes credit for your work. Build a case. To what end? Stephen Chen has been at Cascade for 15 years. He's untouchable. Nobody's untouchable if the evidence is clear enough. Daniel leaned forward. Look, I know I don't have the same experiences you do, but I've seen how companies handle liability. If you can show a pattern of discriminatory behavior, of hostile work environment, they'll have to take it seriously. Maya looked at him with something like wonder. You really believe that? That the system can work? I believe that silence definitely doesn't work, and I believe you're smart enough to build an airtight case if you decide that's what you want to do. It could backfire. I could end up blacklisted in the industry. You could. It's risky as hell. He took her hand. But what's the alternative? Spending the next decade watching Stephen Chen and men like him tear down everything you build? Dying slowly inside while pretending it doesn't affect you? Maya was quiet for a long time, her eyes on their joined hands. When she spoke, her voice was soft but steady. My grandmother used to say that dignity isn't something people give you. It's something you claim for yourself. She sounds like she was a remarkable woman. She was. She worked as a seamstress for 40 years, and she never let anyone make her feel small. Not her employers, not her customers, not the men who thought women like her didn't deserve respect. Maya looked up at Daniel. I think she'd want me to fight. Even if it's scary, even if I might lose. You won't lose. Not if you're strategic about it. And if I do, if this blows up in my face and I end up unemployed, then we figure it out, together. Daniel said it with absolute certainty. I'm not going anywhere, Maya. Whatever happens, we face it together. She kissed him again, softer this time, and when she pulled back, her eyes were clear. I need to go back to the office, get my laptop. There are emails I need to start saving, conversations I need to document. I'll come with you. Daniel, you don't have to. I'm coming with you. We'll go separately if that makes you feel better, but I'm not letting you walk back into that building alone. Not today. They returned to Cascade Solutions an hour later, Maya through the front entrance and Daniel through the parking garage. He made his way to his desk and tried to focus on work, but his attention kept drifting to where Maya sat across the open office floor, her posture rigid, her fingers flying across her keyboard. He was so focused on watching her that he didn't notice Lisa Chen, no relation to Stephen, from HR approaching until she was standing right beside his desk. Daniel, do you have a minute? His heart sank. Lisa from HR was nice enough, but her presence at your desk was never good news. Sure, what's up? In private, please. Her tone was pleasant but firm. Daniel followed her to a small conference room, dread building in his stomach. Lisa closed the door and gestured for him to sit. I'll get right to the point, she said. There have been some concerns raised about your relationship with Maya Collins. Daniel's blood went cold. What kind of concerns? The kind where two colleagues leave work at the same time claiming separate emergencies, and security footage shows them meeting in the parking garage and driving away together in the same vehicle. Lisa's expression was sympathetic but professional. I'm not here to judge, Daniel, but I need to know if there's a romantic relationship between you two that should be disclosed. We're seeing each other, Daniel said carefully. It's new. We've been figuring out how to navigate the professional implications. Well, I appreciate your honesty. You should know that Cascade Solutions doesn't prohibit workplace relationships, but we do require disclosure when there's a direct reporting relationship or when the relationship could create a conflict of interest. Maya and I are peers, same level, different teams. There's no direct reporting relationship. Not currently, Lisa agreed. But Maya is being considered for a promotion to director level. If that happens, she would indirectly oversee your team's work on certain projects. That creates a gray area we need to address proactively. Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. What are you saying? I'm saying you both need to decide what's more important, the relationship or the career advancement. If Maya takes the director position, one of you will need to transfer to a different department, or one of you will need to recuse yourself from projects where there's overlap. That's not fair. Maya earned that promotion. She shouldn't have to choose between her career and her personal life. I agree it's not fair, but it's policy. Lisa softened slightly. Look, I'm telling you this as a heads up, not as an ultimatum. The promotion board doesn't meet for another month. You two have time to figure out what you want to do, but you need to make an official disclosure, and you need to have a plan for how to handle the potential conflict if Maya accepts the promotion. After Lisa left, Daniel sat in the empty conference room trying to process everything. He'd known the relationship would complicate things, had accepted that risk from the start, but he hadn't anticipated this specific scenario, hadn't thought through what it would mean if Maya's career trajectory created a structural conflict with their relationship. His phone buzzed with a text from Maya. HR called me in too. We need to talk. They met in the parking garage after work, sitting in Daniel's car with the windows down and the evening sun slanting through the windshield. They offered me the director position, Maya said without preamble. Officially, I have until Monday to decide. That's amazing, Maya. Congratulations. Don't congratulate me when we both know this is a disaster. She was gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles were white. If I take it, we can't work together anymore. If I don't take it, I'll always wonder if I gave up my career for a relationship that might not even last. Is that what you think? That we might not last? I don't know, Daniel. I don't know anything anymore. She turned to face him, and he saw desperation in her eyes. This morning I was falling apart because Stephen Chen humiliated me. Now I'm being offered the exact promotion I've worked toward for years, and all I can think about is how accepting it might mean losing you. You're not losing me. Then what do we do? Because HR was very clear about the policy. If I'm a director and you're a senior analyst and our teams overlap, we can't work together, period. Daniel had been thinking about this since his conversation with Lisa. What if I transferred? There are analyst positions in other departments, marketing, operations, even IT. I could make a lateral move. And derail your own career? No, absolutely not. My career isn't my priority, Maya. Emma is. And you are. If moving departments means I get to keep both of you in my life, it's not even a question. Maya's eyes filled with tears. You'd really do that? Give up your position, your team, everything you've built? In a heartbeat, he took her hand. I told you I don't do half measures. That includes this. I'm all in, Maya. Whatever it takes. This is insane. We've been together for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, and you're ready to restructure your entire career? Are you saying you're not worth it? She looked at him, and something cracked in her composure. I'm saying I don't know how to accept that kind of sacrifice. I don't know how to be worth that to someone. Then learn. Daniel used his free hand to wipe the tears from her cheeks. Learn to believe that you matter enough for someone to choose you. Learn to accept love that shows up and stays. Learn to be as kind to yourself as you are to everyone else. Maya was crying openly now. What if I take the promotion and you transfer and then we don't work out? What if you end up resenting me for changing your career path? What if we do work out? Daniel countered. What if we build something incredible together? What if this is the beginning of the rest of our lives and we're letting fear make our decisions instead of hope? You make it sound so simple. It's not simple. It's terrifying. But it's also the truest thing I've ever felt. He pulled her closer across the center console. Take the promotion, Maya. You earned it. You deserve it. Don't let fear or doubt or the ghosts of relationships past make you smaller than you are. Take the promotion and let me figure out the rest. You say that like it's your decision to make. It's our decision, together. That's how this works now. Maya pressed her forehead against his. I'm so scared. Me too. But you're doing it anyway. Because you're worth being scared for. He kissed her softly. We both are. They sat in his car as the parking garage emptied around them, holding each other while the sun set and the security lights flickered on. Eventually Maya's phone rang. Her mother, the display said. She let it go to voicemail. I should call her back. She worries when I don't answer. Call her. I'll wait. Maya stepped out of the car for privacy, and Daniel watched her pace while she talked, watched her laugh at something her mother said, watched her wipe at her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking. He thought about Emma's drawing on his refrigerator, about the purple dinosaur Maya had become in his daughter's imagination, about the way his small family had expanded to include this brilliant, broken, brave woman who was learning to let herself be loved. When Maya got back in the car, her expression was different, softer, more settled. "What did your mom say?" Daniel asked. "She said life is too short to make decisions based on fear. She said if someone loves you enough to rearrange their life for you, the least you can do is believe them." Maya smiled slightly. "Then she asked when she gets to meet you. What did you tell her?" "I told her soon, if that's okay with you." "It's more than okay." Maya reached across and took his hand. "I'm going to take the promotion." "And you're going to stay exactly where you are." Daniel started to protest, but she squeezed his hand tighter. "Let me finish. I'm taking the promotion, and we're going to disclose our relationship to HR. We're going to be completely transparent about everything, and we're going to let Cascade Solutions figure out how to handle the overlap without either of us sacrificing our careers." Her voice was steady now, certain. "And if they can't make it work, if the policies are too restrictive or the conflict is too great, then we'll both look for new jobs. Together." "Maya, I'm serious. I'm not letting you be the only one making sacrifices. We're partners now, right? That means we share the risks and the rewards, both of us all in, or neither of us." Daniel felt something fierce and warm bloom in his chest. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." She leaned over and kissed him, and he tasted salt from her earlier tears and something sweeter underneath. Hope, maybe, or the first taste of a future they were choosing together. "Let's go be brave, Daniel. Together." And sitting in that parking garage with the woman he loved and a choice that terrified him, and a future that suddenly felt possible, Daniel thought about his daughter's purple dinosaur drawing and his sister's advice about living again, and the woman in the grocery store parking lot who'd promised it would get easier. She'd been right. It did get easier. But first it got real. Monday morning arrived with the weight of consequence. Daniel woke early, made Emma's breakfast, and tried to ignore the knot of anxiety in his stomach. Today was the day they'd make everything official. The relationship disclosure, Maya's acceptance of the promotion, the beginning of whatever came next. Emma noticed his distraction immediately. She had a 6-year-old's uncanny ability to sense when her father was preoccupied. "Daddy, you're making my eggs weird," she observed, poking at her scrambled breakfast with suspicion. "Sorry, sweetheart. I'm a little distracted this morning." "Is it because of Maya?" Daniel nearly dropped the spatula. "What makes you think it's about Maya?" Emma gave him a look that was far too knowing for her age. "You get smiley when you talk about her, and you've been checking your phone a lot. Aunt Lisa says that means you like someone." "Aunt Lisa talks too much." "So you do like her?" Emma's face lit up with delight. "I knew it. I told Aunt Lisa you liked the purple dinosaur lady." Despite his nerves, Daniel laughed. "Yes, I like her. Is that okay with you?" Emma considered this with the seriousness she applied to all important decisions. "Does she like dinosaurs?" "I think she likes them because you like them." "Good. That's important." Emma took a bite of her eggs, apparently satisfied with this answer. "Can she come to my birthday party next month?" The question hit Daniel harder than it should have. Emma's birthday party meant family, meant Lisa and Marcus and Emma's school friends and their parents. It meant introducing Maya not as a colleague or even as his girlfriend, but as someone important enough to be included in his daughter's celebration. "I'll ask her," Daniel said carefully. "Would you like that?" "Duh, Daddy. She's part of our family now." Emma said it with such casual certainty that Daniel had to turn away to hide the sudden moisture in his eyes. He dropped Emma at school and drove to Cascade Solutions with his heart hammering. Maya was already in the parking garage, sitting in her newly repaired car, and when she saw him pull in, she got out to meet him. "Ready for this?" she asked, and he could hear the tremor beneath her professional composure. "As ready as I'll ever be." He wanted to kiss her, to pull her close, and promise everything would be fine. But they were in the parking garage where anyone could see, so he settled for a brief touch of her hand. "We do this together." They walked into the building side by side, and Daniel felt the shift in attention immediately. People noticed. Conversations paused as they passed. By the time they reached their floor, the whispers had already started. Lisa from HR was waiting at her office, her expression neutral but not unkind. Maya, Daniel, thank you for coming in. Please sit down. They sat in the same chairs they'd occupied separately just days before, and Daniel reached for Maya's hand before he could second-guess the impulse. She laced her fingers through his and held tight. I appreciate you both being proactive about this, Lisa began, pulling out a standard disclosure form. Let's start with the basics. How long have you been in a relationship? About 3 weeks officially, Maya said, her voice steady, though we'd been getting to know each other for a few weeks before that. And you both understand the company's policies regarding workplace relationships? We do, Daniel confirmed. We've read the handbook thoroughly. We understand that there can't be any direct reporting relationship, and that we need to recuse ourselves from situations where the relationship could create bias or conflict of interest. Lisa made notes on her form. Maya, I understand you've accepted the director position. I have. And you're both aware that this creates a potential structural conflict given the overlap between your departments? We are, Maya said. We've discussed several potential solutions. I can recuse myself from any projects where Daniel's team is involved, or we can request that project assignments be structured to minimize overlap, or Daniel can transfer to a different department if that's necessary. I'd prefer not to transfer, Daniel added, but I will if that's what's required to make this work within policy. Lisa studied them both for a long moment. I'll be honest with you, this is complicated. The company wants to support employee relationships, but we also have to maintain professional standards and avoid any appearance of favoritism or conflict of interest. We understand that, Maya said. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for the opportunity to prove we can maintain professional boundaries while also being honest about our personal relationship. That's fair? Lisa set down her pen. Here's what I'm going to recommend. You'll both sign the disclosure form. Maya, as the more senior employee, once the promotion is finalized, you'll be required to recuse yourself from any direct oversight of Daniel's work. That means no performance reviews, no project approvals, no direct supervision of any kind. Daniel, you'll report to James Morrison instead of up through Maya's chain. That works? Daniel said immediately. There's more. Lisa's expression turned serious. You'll both be under increased scrutiny. People will be watching to see if Maya gives preferential treatment to Daniel's projects. They'll be looking for any sign of impropriety. You'll need to be absolutely above reproach in all professional interactions. We can do that, Maya said firmly. I hope so. Because if there are any violations of policy, any evidence of bias or inappropriate use of authority, we'll have to take action, and that action could include termination for one or both of you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Daniel felt Maya's hand tighten in his, but her voice remained calm. We understand the risks. We're willing to accept them. Lisa nodded and slid the disclosure forms across her desk. Then sign these and we'll file them with your personnel records. Congratulations on the promotion, Maya. And to both of you. I genuinely hope this works out. They signed the forms, and as they left Lisa's office, Daniel felt simultaneously relieved and terrified. They'd made it official. They'd laid everything on the table. Now they had to live with the consequences. The rest of the day passed in a blur of knowing looks and carefully neutral expressions from colleagues. Some people congratulated Maya on her promotion. Others asked pointed questions about her weekend. And Stephen Chen, when he passed them in the hallway, gave Maya a look that made Daniel's protective instincts flare. Congratulations, Maya, Stephen said, his tone dripping with false warmth. I'm sure you'll do wonderfully in your new role, though I hope you won't let personal matters distract from the work. Maya's smile was pure ice. I've never let personal matters interfere with my work, Stephen. I'm sure you can appreciate that level of professionalism. The dig was subtle but unmistakable. Stephen's smile tightened before he walked away. That was dangerous, Daniel murmured once Stephen was out of earshot. That was necessary. Maya's jaw was set. I'm not going to let him or anyone else question my integrity just because I'm in a relationship. I earned this promotion on merit, and I'm not going to apologize for also having a personal life. By the end of the week, the initial gossip had settled into a new normal. People knew, people talked, But the world hadn't ended. Daniel and Maya maintained scrupulous professional distance at work, and if their colleagues noticed that they often left the building at the same time or arrived with matching coffee orders, nobody commented directly. But the real test came 2 weeks later when Maya's mother flew into Portland for a weekend visit. Daniel had met parents before. His ex-wife's parents had been politely disapproving from the start, sensing perhaps that their daughter's marriage to a struggling photographer wouldn't last. But this felt different. This felt important. "She's going to love you," Maya said for the third time as they drove to the airport. She was nervous, her hands twisting in her lap. "She's going to love you and Emma, and everything is going to be fine." "You're trying to convince yourself, not me." "Is it working?" "Not even a little bit." Maya laughed despite her nerves. "My mom can be intense. She has opinions about everything, and she's not shy about sharing them. But she's also the kindest person I know. And she's already decided she likes you based on what I've told her." "What have you told her?" "That you're patient and kind and you make me feel safe. That you have a beautiful daughter who draws me as a purple dinosaur. That you're the first person in years who's made me think I could have both a career and a life outside of work." Daniel reached over and took her hand. "That's a lot of pressure to live up to." "You'll be fine. Just be yourself." Maria Collins emerged from the airport terminal like a force of nature. Small but commanding, her dark hair shot through with silver, her eyes sharp and assessing as they landed on Daniel. She hugged Maya first, fiercely, then turned her attention to him. "So you're the man who's stolen my daughter's heart." "Mom," Maya groaned. "I'm trying," Daniel said, extending his hand. "Daniel Reed. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Collins." Maria ignored his hand and hugged him instead, surprising them both. "Call me Maria. And thank you for making my daughter smile again. I was starting to worry she'd forgotten how." They went to dinner at a small restaurant Maya's mother chose, and Daniel watched the dynamic between mother and daughter with interest. Maria asked questions, not invasive, but thorough. She wanted to know about his work, his daughter, his plans for the future. She asked about the divorce, about his relationship with his ex-wife, about how Emma was handling the idea of her father dating someone new. "Emma likes Maya a lot," Daniel said honestly. "She's invited her to her birthday party next month." Maria's eyebrows rose. "That's significant." "It is." "And you're comfortable with that? Introducing Maya into your daughter's life when the relationship is still so new?" It was a fair question, and Daniel took a moment to consider his answer. If this was casual, if Maya was someone I was just seeing without real intention, then no, I'd keep it separate. But this isn't casual, Maria. I wouldn't have risked the complications at work, wouldn't have gone through the disclosure process, if I wasn't serious about building a future with your daughter. Maya's hand found his under the table, and when he looked at her, her eyes were bright with emotion. Maria studied them both, and something in her expression softened. "My daughter has spent her whole life trying to prove she's good enough. Good enough for scholarships, good enough for corporate jobs, good enough for respect in rooms full of men who doubted her. I worried she'd spend her whole life chasing approval that would never satisfy her." She turned to Daniel. "But when she talks about you, I don't hear that desperate need for validation. I hear happiness. I hear hope. That's worth more than any promotion or achievement." "Mom," Maya whispered, tears threatening. "I'm not finished." Maria's voice turned stern. "Daniel, I need you to understand something. My daughter is brilliant and capable, but she's also been hurt by people who said they cared and then left when things got difficult. If you're not prepared to stay, if there's any doubt in your mind about this relationship, then you need to walk away now before she gets any more attached." "I'm not going anywhere," Daniel said firmly. "I know it's fast. I know 3 weeks isn't a long time by conventional standards, but I've learned that time isn't what matters. It's certainty. And I'm certain about Maya. I'm certain about us." Maria held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Good. Because my daughter deserves someone who's certain. She deserves someone who chooses her every single day, not just when it's convenient." The dinner shifted after that, becoming easier and more relaxed. Maria told stories about Maya's childhood, about her grandmother who'd taught her to cook and to stand up for herself. Maya groaned through the embarrassing anecdotes, but laughed genuinely, her earlier tension melting away. When they dropped Maria at her hotel later that evening, she hugged them both. Bring Emma to breakfast tomorrow, she told Daniel. I want to meet the little girl who thinks my daughter is a purple dinosaur. The next morning, Daniel woke Emma early and explained that they were meeting someone special. Is it Maya? Emma asked, her eyes lighting up. Maya and her mom. Maya's mom wants to meet you. Emma considered this seriously. Because I'm important to Maya? Because you're important to me and I'm important to Maya, which makes you important to her too. That's a lot of important. It is. Emma insisted on wearing her favorite dress, the one with dinosaurs on it, naturally, and brought along the purple dinosaur drawing to show Maria. Daniel's heart was in his throat as they walked into the restaurant and spotted Maya and her mother waiting at a corner booth. Maya's face lit up when she saw Emma, and she stood to greet them. Emma, I'm so glad you're here. I want you to meet someone very special to me. This is my mom, Maria. Emma studied Maria with the frank curiosity of childhood. You look like Maya, but older. Maria laughed, delighted. That's very observant of you, Emma, and you look like your daddy. You have his kind eyes. Do you want to see a picture I drew? Emma didn't wait for an answer before unfolding her dinosaur family drawing. This is Daddy Terry, and this is me, and this purple one is Maya because she's part of our family now. Daniel saw Maria's eyes glisten as she studied the drawing. It's beautiful, Emma. May I keep it? You can have a copy, but the real one has to stay on our refrigerator because that's where important art goes. They had breakfast together, and Daniel watched Emma charm Maria completely with her chatter about dinosaurs and school and her upcoming birthday party. Maya sat close to him, her hand occasionally finding his knee under the table, and he thought about how much had changed in just a few weeks. He'd gone from carefully guarded and isolated to sitting in a restaurant with his daughter, his girlfriend, and his girlfriend's mother, talking about birthday parties and making plans for the future. It should have terrified him. Instead, it felt right. After breakfast, as they walked to the parking lot, Maria pulled Daniel aside while Maya and Emma examined a flower bed. Thank you for sharing your daughter with us, she said quietly. I know that's not a small thing. Emma already decided Maya was family. I'm just following her lead. Children see what adults try to hide. If Emma trusts Maya, that tells me everything I need to know about your judgment. Maria paused, watching her daughter crouch down to point out flowers to Emma. She's happy, really happy. I haven't seen her like this since before her grandmother died. She makes me happy too, both of us. Good. Then take care of each other. And when things get hard, because they will get hard, don't run. Don't let pride or fear or stubbornness keep you from fighting for this. Maria flew home the next day, but her words stayed with Daniel. And 2 weeks later, when Stephen Chen called Maya into his office and questioned whether her new relationship was affecting her judgment on a project, Daniel remembered Maria's advice about fighting. Maya came to find him after the meeting, her professional mask firmly in place, but her eyes blazing. He questioned my decision on the Morrison account, she said without preamble. Said I was being too lenient with timeline extensions. Implied that I was compromising standards to avoid conflict with you. That's ridiculous. Morrison's team requested the extension 3 weeks ago, before we even disclosed our relationship. I know. But Stephen doesn't care about facts. He cares about undermining my authority. Maya's hands were shaking again, the same tremor from weeks ago. And the worst part is that he's technically following proper channels. He's not saying anything overtly discriminatory. He's just questioning every decision I make, every call I take, every email I send. It's death by 1,000 cuts, just like I said. Daniel made a decision. Document it. Every interaction, every question decision, every undermining comment. Build the case you talked about. Daniel, I told you. I know what you told me. I also know that you're too good at your job and too important to this company for them to lose you. But they'll only realize that if you force them to see the pattern of behavior. Stephen is creating a hostile work environment, and Cascade Solutions has a legal obligation to address it. Maya looked at him with something between hope and fear. This could backfire spectacularly. It could, or it could finally hold Stephen Chen accountable for behavior that should have gotten him fired years ago. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. You told me you were tired of being perfect while men like him get to be mediocre and cruel. So stop being perfect, start being angry, start demanding better. I don't know if I can do this alone. You're not alone, not anymore. He wanted to touch her, to pull her close, but they were at work and people were watching. So instead, he held her gaze and let her see everything he felt. Whatever you decide to do, I'm with you. We fight together, remember? Maya took a shaky breath, then nodded. Okay, together. That evening, they met at Daniel's apartment and started building the case. Maya had kept meticulous records, emails, meeting notes, documentation of every project where Stephen had interfered or undermined her authority. Together, they organized it chronologically, highlighting patterns of behavior that went back years before their relationship had even begun. Look at this, Daniel said, pointing to a series of emails from 8 months earlier. He questioned your budget allocation on the Reynolds project, then took credit for the solution you proposed. That's a clear pattern of both undermining and appropriation of work. And here, Maya added, pulling up another file, 3 different instances where he interrupted me in executive meetings to clarify points I'd already made clearly. Each time, he repeated exactly what I'd said, but somehow got credit for the insight. They worked until almost midnight, building a document that was damning in its thoroughness. When they finally finished, Maya sat back and rubbed her eyes. This is it. If I submit this to HR, there's no going back. Are you ready for that? She looked at him, and he saw determination replacing fear. I think I am. For the first time in my career, I think I'm ready to stop accepting unacceptable behavior just to keep the peace. Then we submit it tomorrow. What if nothing changes? What if HR reviews this and decides Stephen is more valuable to the company than I am? Then we both walk. We find new jobs. We start over. Daniel said it with absolute certainty. I mean it, Maya. Your dignity and mental health are worth more than any corporate position. And I'll be damned if I watch you shrink yourself to fit into a company that doesn't value you. Maya's eyes filled with tears. You really mean that? You'd leave Cascade Solutions. You'd uproot your career, potentially complicate childcare arrangements with Emma, all because they're treating me badly. Without hesitation. She kissed him then, deep and desperate and full of everything she couldn't say. When they broke apart, she was crying in earnest. I love you, she whispered. I know it's too soon and we should probably wait, and there are 1,000 reasons not to say it yet. But I love you, Daniel. I love you and Emma and this life we're building together. And I'm terrified because I've never felt this way about anyone. Daniel's heart was racing, but his voice was steady. I love you too. I've loved you since the night of the storm, since you asked me to stay and I chose the couch, because I knew even then that you were worth doing things right. I love you, Maya, and I'm not scared anymore. They held each other in his small living room, and Daniel thought about all the moments that had led them here. The storm, the candlelight conversations, the parking garage confessions, the careful disclosure to HR, Maria's blessing, Emma's purple dinosaur drawing, every choice, every risk, every moment of vulnerability had built toward this. The next morning, they submitted the documentation to HR together. Lisa's expression grew increasingly serious as she reviewed the file, and when she finally looked up, her face was grim. This is extensive and deeply concerning. She set down the papers. I'm going to need to escalate this to our legal team and to senior leadership. This kind of pattern, if it's substantiated, represents a significant liability for the company. How long will the investigation take? Maya asked. Could be weeks. Could be months. During that time, I'd recommend minimizing direct interaction with Stephen. If there are any retaliatory actions, any at all, I want you to document them immediately and report them to me. We understand. Lisa looked at them both with something like respect. I know this wasn't an easy decision. Whistleblowing rarely is, even when it's the right thing to do. But for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. As they left HR, Maya's phone rang. It was Emma's school. She'd fallen on the playground and needed to be picked up. Nothing serious, just a scraped knee and hurt feelings, but Daniel's co-parenting arrangement with Lisa meant he was the emergency contact. Go, Maya said immediately. Emma needs you. Come with me. Daniel, I can't just leave work to... Come with me, he repeated. Emma asked for you specifically. The school nurse said she's crying for her daddy and for Maya. Maya's expression crumbled. She asked for me? Your family, remember? The purple dinosaur. Come on. They drove to Emma's school together, and when they arrived, they found her in the nurse's office with a bandaged knee and tear-stained cheeks. But when she saw them both walking in together, her whole face lit up. You came, both of you. Of course we came, Maya said, kneeling down to Emma's level. We heard you had a tough day. I fell off the monkey bars. It hurt a lot. Emma showed off her bandage with a mix of pride and residual trauma. But the nurse said I was very brave. You are very brave, Daniel confirmed, scooping her up carefully. The bravest girl I know. Are you mad I called for Maya too? Emma asked, suddenly uncertain. Daniel's throat tightened. No, sweetheart, I'm not mad. I'm glad you have people who love you and want to be there for you. Emma looked at Maya seriously. Do you love me? Maya's eyes went bright with tears, but her voice was steady. Yes, Emma, I do. Very much. Good, because I love you too, and Daddy loves you, so now we're all a family for real, right? Daniel met Maya's eyes over Emma's head, and in that moment, everything crystallized. The risks they'd taken, the complications they'd navigated, the love they'd chosen despite every logical reason to protect themselves, it had all led to this. To standing in an elementary school nurse's office with scraped knees and declarations of love from a 6-year-old who saw the world more clearly than any adult. Yeah, sweetheart, Daniel said softly, his eyes never leaving Maya's. We're a family for real. And watching Maya's face transform with joy and relief and love, Daniel knew that whatever came next, HR investigations, workplace politics, Stephen Chen's retaliation, they would face it together. Because that's what families did. They stayed, they fought, they loved each other through the mess and the beauty and everything in between. And for the first time in 3 years, Daniel wasn't just surviving, he was living. Emma's birthday party arrived on a Saturday afternoon 3 weeks later, and Daniel's small backyard was transformed into a dinosaur wonderland. Lisa had helped with decorations, and Maya had spent the previous evening baking an elaborate cake shaped like a T-Rex. Now, as children shrieked and played and parents made small talk over plastic cups of lemonade, Daniel watched Maya crouch down to help a shy child find the bathroom and felt his chest tighten with something that felt remarkably like contentment. She's good with kids, Lisa observed, appearing at his elbow with that knowing look she'd perfected over the years. She's good with Emma. That's what matters. It's more than that, Danny. Look at her. Lisa gestured to where Maya was now organizing a game of dinosaur freeze dance, her professional composure completely abandoned in favor of genuine joy. She's happy. You're both happy. When are you going to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop? There's an active HR investigation into her boss. We're still figuring out how to navigate work boundaries. Her career is potentially on the line because she refused to tolerate harassment. I'd say the other shoe is actively dropping. And yet here you both are, throwing a birthday party for your daughter, looking like a family. Lisa squeezed his arm. I'm just saying, maybe it's time to stop focusing on what could go wrong and start celebrating what's going right. Before Daniel could respond, Emma came running over, her face flushed with excitement. Daddy, Maya says we can do the piñata now. Can we? Please? Go ahead, sweetheart. Let Maya help you set it up. Emma grabbed Maya's hand and pulled her toward where the dinosaur piñata hung from a tree branch. Daniel watched them together, Emma bouncing with enthusiasm, Maya listening intently to his daughter's elaborate instructions about piñata protocol, and felt something shift in his understanding of what family meant. It wasn't about biology or legal documents or traditional structures. It was about this. Two people who loved each other choosing to show up again and again for the small, important moments that built a life. His phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Daniel almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Mr. Reed, this is Jennifer Walsh from Cascade Solutions Legal Department. I apologize for calling on a Saturday, but I wanted to reach you before Monday. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Daniel's stomach dropped. He moved away from the party noise, into the quieter space near his garage. I'm listening. We've completed our preliminary investigation into the allegations Ms. Collins submitted regarding Stephen Chen's conduct. I want to inform you that we're taking these allegations very seriously. We've interviewed multiple employees and reviewed extensive documentation, and we found credible evidence supporting a pattern of discriminatory and retaliatory behavior. What does that mean for Maya? It means that effective immediately, Stephen Chen is being placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. We're also implementing immediate changes to reporting structures to ensure Ms. Collins isn't subject to any further retaliation. And I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to provide a formal statement about what you've observed. Daniel's mind raced. Yes, absolutely. Whatever you need. Excellent. I'll have someone contact you Monday to schedule an interview. And Mr. Reed, please tell Mrs. Collins that we appreciate her courage in coming forward. This kind of behavior has no place at Cascade Solutions, and we're committed to ensuring it's addressed appropriately. After the call ended, Daniel stood in his garage trying to process what he'd just heard. Stephen Chen, the untouchable executive, was being held accountable. Maya's risk had paid off. The system had actually worked. He found Maya helping clean up after the piñata massacre, and when she saw his face, her smile faded. What's wrong? Was that work? Can we talk privately? They stepped into his kitchen while Lisa supervised the continued chaos outside. Maya's face was pale, her hands already twisting together nervously. They called to tell me they're firing me, didn't they? They decided Stephen was more valuable. Maya, stop. Daniel took her hands. Stephen's on administrative leave. They're taking your complaint seriously. They want my statement as a witness. You were right. We were right. They're actually holding him accountable. Maya's knees buckled slightly, and Daniel caught her, pulling her close as she processed the information. Are you sure? This isn't some procedural formality before they find a reason to let me go? The lawyer said they found credible evidence of discriminatory behavior. Multiple witnesses confirmed the pattern. This is real, Maya. She was shaking now, but not from fear. I can't believe it. I actually can't believe they listened. You made them listen. You documented everything. You built an airtight case, and you refused to accept unacceptable behavior. You did this. Maya pulled back to look at him, her eyes bright with tears. We did this. I never would have had the courage without you. You've always had the courage. You just needed someone to remind you that you didn't have to fight alone. They stood in his small kitchen, holding each other while children's laughter filtered in through the windows, and Daniel thought about all the moments that had led them here, the storm that had brought them together, the couch where he'd slept because he'd refused to do anything halfway, the parking garage conversation where they'd chosen transparency over self-protection, Emma's purple dinosaur drawing that had declared Maya family before any adult had dared to say it out loud. Every choice, every risk, every moment of vulnerability had been worth it for this. Standing in his kitchen with the woman he loved, celebrating a victory that meant she could finally work without constantly defending her worth. I need to get back to the party, Maya said eventually, wiping at her eyes. Emma will wonder where we went. She's fine. Lisa's got it covered. Daniel cupped her face in his hands. Take a minute. Let yourself feel this. I feel terrified. Like any second someone's going to call back and say it was a mistake. That's not going to happen. You can't know that. I can know that you're brilliant and capable, and you deserve to work somewhere that recognizes that. And if Cascade Solutions fails to see it, we'll find somewhere that does. Together. Maya kissed him then, soft and grateful and full of promise. When they rejoined the party, Emma immediately claimed Maya's attention again, pulling her into a game that involved elaborate dinosaur sound effects and very serious dramatic stakes. Daniel watched them play and felt Lisa appear beside him again. So that phone call looked important. Maya's complaint against Stephen Chen is being taken seriously. He's on administrative leave. Lisa's eyebrows shot up. Seriously? They're actually doing something? Apparently. Danny, that's huge. That almost never happens, especially with executives at Stephen's level. Maya must have built one hell of a case. She did. She was meticulous. Daniel paused. We both were. Lisa studied him with that older sister perception that saw through everything. You helped her build it. I supported her. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, you took a pretty big risk getting involved in a workplace harassment investigation against a senior executive. That could have backfired on you too. I wasn't going to stand by and watch him tear her down just because it was safer for me to stay quiet. No, you weren't. Lisa's voice softened. You know what I love about this? You didn't try to fix it for her or take over or make it about you. You just stood beside her and helped her find her own strength. That's real partnership, Danny. The party continued into the evening, and as the last families trickled away and Emma crashed on the couch from sugar and excitement, Daniel and Maya cleaned up together in comfortable silence. They developed an easy rhythm over the past weeks. She washed while he dried. They moved around each other without collision, small touches and shared smiles punctuating the mundane tasks. "Thank you for today," Maya said as she handed him the last plate, "for including me in Emma's birthday, for letting me be part of this." "You are part of this. Emma made that clear weeks ago with her drawing." "I know, but it still means something that you let me in, that you trusted me with the most important person in your life." Daniel set down the dish towel and turned to face her. "I've been thinking about something, about what comes next." Maya's expression became cautious. "What do you mean?" "Your lease is up in 2 months. You mentioned that last week." "It is. I've been looking at other apartments, trying to find something affordable but closer to work." "What if you didn't look for another apartment?" The kitchen went very quiet. Maya's hands stilled in the dishwater. "Daniel, what are you saying?" "I'm saying my lease is up in 3 months, and this apartment is too small anyway. Emma's getting older. She needs more space. I've been thinking about finding a house, something with a yard and a real kitchen and room for Emma to grow." He stepped closer. "I'm saying, what if we looked for that house together?" Maya's eyes went wide. "You're asking me to move in with you and Emma." "I'm asking if you want to build a life with us. A real life, not just weekend visits and careful navigation of work boundaries and separate living spaces we retreat to when things get complicated. I'm asking if you're ready to go all in." "Daniel, that's a huge step. We've only been together for a few months." "I know, and if it's too soon, we can wait. We can take more time. But I also know that I love you. I know Emma loves you. I know that every morning I wake up wishing you were there, and every night I go to sleep thinking about the future we could build together. Time isn't what matters. Certainty is, and I'm certain about this." Maya was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "What if I'm terrible at it? What if I can't be what Emma needs or what you need, or you already are what we need? You show up. You care. You try. That's all anyone can ask." Daniel wiped her tears away gently. "I'm not asking you to be perfect, Maya. I'm asking you to be ours." She laughed through her tears. "That's not fair. You can't say things like that and expect me to think rationally." "I don't want you to think rationally. I want you to tell me what you feel." Maya took a shaky breath. "I feel terrified. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of something beautiful and terrifying, and I'm scared that if I jump, I'll ruin it somehow. But I also feel like I've been waiting my whole life for someone to ask me to stay. To really stay, not just in the moment, but in all the moments. In the mundane and the beautiful and the hard parts too. So stay. Move in with us. Help me pick out a house with a proper kitchen where you can teach Emma to cook like your grandmother taught you. Wake up next to me every morning instead of just sometimes. Be part of this family officially, not just in purple dinosaur drawings. What about work? The investigation is still ongoing. What if Stephen fights back? What if there's retaliation? Then we handle it. Together. Whatever happens, we face it together." Maya looked at him for a long moment, and Daniel could see her processing, weighing, fighting against every instinct that told her to protect herself by holding back. Then something in her expression shifted, resolve replacing fear, hope replacing doubt. "Okay. Okay? Okay, yes, I want to find a house with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to be part of this family officially and completely and messily." She was crying and laughing at the same time. "I want all of it, Daniel, with you and Emma. I want the whole beautiful, terrifying thing." Daniel kissed her then, deep and sure and full of promises he intended to keep. When they broke apart, they were both grinning like idiots. "We should probably tell Emma," Maya said, "before we start looking at houses." "We should, but she's asleep on the couch covered in cake frosting. Maybe we tell her in the morning." "In the morning," Maya agreed. But Emma wasn't as asleep as they thought. Her small voice came from the living room, sleepy and content. "Are you and Maya going to live with us, Daddy?" Daniel and Maya exchanged a look, then moved to the couch where Emma was curled up, her eyes barely open. How much did you hear, sweetheart? Daniel asked, sitting beside her. All of it. You were being loud. Emma sat up and rubbed her eyes. So is Maya moving in? Would that be okay with you? Maya asked, kneeling in front of the couch. Emma looked at her seriously. Will you make pancakes on Saturday mornings? Every Saturday if you want. And help me with my homework? Absolutely. And read bedtime stories with different voices like Daddy does? I'll do my best. Emma considered this carefully, then nodded with satisfaction. Then, yes, you should definitely move in. We need someone who can do voices and make pancakes. Daddy can only do pancakes, and his voices are terrible. Hey, Daniel protested, but he was laughing. Emma launched herself at Maya, hugging her tight. I'm glad you're staying. I was worried you might leave like my other mom did. Maya's eyes met Daniel's over Emma's head, and he saw the fierce protectiveness there, the determination to be different, to stay when staying got hard. I'm not going anywhere, Emma, Maya said quietly. I promise. Monday morning brought the formal interview with Cascade Solutions' legal team. Daniel sat in a conference room and gave his statement. Everything he'd observed about Stephen Chen's behavior toward Maya and other employees, the documentation he'd helped compile, the pattern of undermining and retaliation that had escalated after their relationship disclosure. The lawyer taking his statement was thorough and professional. This corroborates what we've heard from other witnesses. Thank you for your candor, Mr. Reed. What happens now? The investigation continues, but I can tell you that the evidence we've gathered is substantial. Mr. Chen's employment with Cascade Solutions is unlikely to continue. 2 days later, the company announced that Stephen Chen had been terminated for violations of the employee conduct policy. The official statement was carefully worded and deliberately vague, but the message was clear. Harassment and retaliation had consequences, even for senior executives. Maya called Daniel from her office, her voice shaking. He's actually gone. Stephen's actually gone. How do you feel? Vindicated. Relieved. Terrified that this will somehow blow back on me anyway. She paused. But mostly, I feel grateful. Grateful that I had you supporting me. Grateful that the system actually worked. Grateful that I don't have to spend every day looking over my shoulder anymore. You did this, Maya. You refused to accept unacceptable behavior. You documented everything. You built a case so strong they couldn't ignore it. This is your victory. Our victory, she corrected. I never would have had the courage without you. That weekend, they started looking at houses. Lisa came along to watch Emma while Daniel and Maya toured properties, and Marcus came too because he claimed to know about structural issues and property values. Really, Daniel suspected they both just wanted to be part of the story. The third house they looked at was perfect. A small craftsman bungalow with a real backyard, 3 bedrooms, a kitchen that made Maya's eyes light up, and built-in bookshelves that Emma immediately claimed for her dinosaur collection. It's over budget, Maya said, running her hand along the kitchen counter, but her voice lacked conviction. We can make the numbers work, Daniel said. My salary, your new director's salary, careful budgeting, we can do this. Are you sure? This is a huge commitment. I'm sure. Are you? Maya looked around the kitchen, then through the doorway to where Emma was spinning in circles in the empty living room, her laughter echoing off the walls. Yes, I'm sure. They put in an offer that night. 3 weeks later, it was accepted. The move-in day was chaos, boxes everywhere, furniture assembly instructions that made no sense, Emma alternating between excitement and anxiety about the change. But at the end of the day, when they collapsed on the couch together in their new living room, it felt right. I can't believe we actually did this, Maya said, her head on Daniel's shoulder while Emma dozed between them. Did what? This. All of it. Went from colleagues to in love to living together in less than 6 months. It's insane. It's fast, Daniel agreed. But it's not insane. It's just us refusing to let fear make our decisions. Your sister thinks we're crazy. Lisa thinks everyone's crazy. She also helped us move all day and brought dinner, so clearly she approves. Maya laughed. True. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Daniel? Yeah? Thank you for that night in the storm, for sleeping on the couch when you could have stayed, for seeing me when I'd gotten so good at being invisible. For staying when I gave you every reason to run. You never gave me a reason to run. You gave me every reason to stay. He kissed her forehead. Besides, I told you that first night, I don't do half measures. I meant it then, and I mean it now. Emma stirred between them, her sleepy voice mumbling something about purple dinosaurs. Maya smiled and adjusted the blanket around her. I love this, she whispered. I love this life we're building. I love you and Emma and this house and even the chaos of moving. I love all of it. Me too, Daniel said simply. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of the Cascade Solutions leadership team and presented her strategic initiative for improving workplace culture and accountability. The presentation was brilliant, data-driven, comprehensive, and impossible to ignore. When she finished, the applause was genuine. After the meeting, the CEO approached her. Ms. Collins, that was exceptional work. I want to talk to you about expanding your role. We need someone to lead our diversity and inclusion efforts, someone who understands the challenges and has the credibility to drive real change. Would you be interested? Maya thought about the teacher she'd wanted to be, about the career she'd built out of necessity rather than passion, about the choice she'd been afraid she'd have to make between financial security and meaningful work. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, take your time. That evening, Maya came home to find Daniel helping Emma with homework at the kitchen table and dinner simmering on the stove. This had become their routine. They traded off cooking and homework duty, shared the invisible labor of household management, built a life that worked because they both showed up for it. How was the presentation? Daniel asked, looking up from Emma's math worksheet. Good, really good. Maya set down her bag and kissed Emma's head, then Daniel's. The CEO offered me a new role, leading diversity and inclusion efforts company-wide. That's amazing! Congratulations! I haven't said yes yet. Daniel studied her face. Why not? Maya pulled out a chair and sat down. Because I've been thinking about what I actually want. Not what pays the most or looks best on a resume, but what would make me happy. And what would make you happy? Teaching. I still think about teaching, about working with students, about helping them discover literature and ideas and who they are. She looked at him. The diversity role would be meaningful work, and it pays well, but it's not what I dream about. Then don't take it. Daniel, we have a mortgage, we have expenses. Emma's going to need braces eventually, and college savings, and we'll figure it out. Together. Like we always do. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. How much do teaching positions pay? Maya named a figure that was nearly 40% less than her current director's salary. And how much would we need to make the budget work if you made that much? I'd have to run the numbers, but probably, she paused, calculating. We'd need to cut about $1,500 a month. Smaller grocery budget, no more eating out, maybe sell my car and share yours. That's doable. It would be tight, really tight. No margin for unexpected expenses. But doable, Daniel repeated. And you'd be happy, actually happy, doing work that matters to you instead of just surviving in a career you hate. Emma had been listening to this exchange with the focused attention she applied to things she didn't quite understand but sensed were important. Is Maya going to be a teacher? Maybe, sweetheart, if it's what she wants. Like my teacher, Ms. Rodriguez? She's really nice. Maya would be a good teacher. Thank you, Emma, Maya said, her voice thick with emotion. Can you teach my class? That would be so cool. I think I'd be teaching high school, not elementary school, but I'd be teaching kids like you're going to be when you're older. Emma considered this seriously. Then you should definitely do it, because you're good at explaining things, and you're patient, and you make learning fun. Those are the most important things for teachers. Maya's eyes filled with tears. When did you get so wise? I'm 6 3/4. I've been around. Emma said it with such seriousness that both adults laughed. Over the next few weeks, Maya researched teaching positions, applied for certification programs, and ran budget scenarios until she'd covered every possible angle. Finally, on a quiet Sunday morning, while Emma played in the backyard, she made her decision. I'm going to do it, she told Daniel. I'm going to turn down the diversity role and pursue teaching. It'll take about a year to get my certification, and I'll need to keep my current director position during that time. But after that, I'm applying to teaching jobs. I'm proud of you. I'm terrified. You can be both. Daniel pulled her close. But you're choosing happiness over security. You're choosing the life you want instead of the life you think you should want. That takes real courage. My grandmother would be proud too, Maya said quietly. She always said that the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. The year passed in a blur of work and certification classes and building the life they'd chosen. Maya thrived in her teaching courses, came home energized instead of drained, talked about pedagogy and curriculum design with the same passion she'd once reserved for nothing. Emma grew too, gaining confidence and curiosity in equal measure. She still drew dinosaur pictures, but now Maya appeared in them not as a purple dinosaur, but as herself. As Maya, the person who made pancakes on Saturday mornings and helped with homework and read bedtime stories with funny voices. And Daniel watched the two most important people in his life bloom into themselves. Watched Maya discover the teacher she was meant to be. Watched Emma grow into a child who knew she was loved completely and unconditionally. Watched their small family become something solid and real and beautiful. When Maya got her teaching certification, they celebrated with cake and champagne and Emma's enthusiastic but off-key singing. And when Maya accepted a position teaching English at a local high school, taking a significant pay cut to do work she loved, they celebrated again. "Are you scared?" Daniel asked that night as they lay in bed in the house they'd chosen together. "Terrified, but excited too. For the first time in my life, I'm doing something because I want to, not because I have to. That's worth being scared for. I'm proud of you for having the courage to choose happiness. I couldn't have done it without you, without knowing I had a partner who would support me even when it meant sacrifices." "That's what love is," Daniel said simply. "Showing up for each other. Staying when staying is hard. Choosing each other every single day." Maya rolled over to look at him, her eyes bright in the darkness. "Do you remember that night? The storm? When you said you couldn't sleep on my couch?" "Of course. I was so confused. I thought you were rejecting me. I was protecting us, both of us, because even then I knew you mattered. I knew this was going to be important. You were right. About all of it. About refusing to do things halfway. About building something real instead of taking the easy path." She paused. "I love you, Daniel Reed. I love you and Emma and this life we've built. I love that we chose each other despite every logical reason not to. I love that we stayed when staying was hard." "I love you too," Daniel said, and pulled her close. 2 years after that storm-drenched night when everything changed, Daniel and Maya stood in their backyard watching Emma play with the neighborhood kids. Maya's first year of teaching was behind her, exhausting and challenging and more fulfilling than any corporate position had ever been. Daniel had been promoted to lead analyst, a role that let him mentor younger employees while maintaining the work-life balance he needed for Emma. They'd built a life together. Not perfect, but real. There were still hard days and tight budgets and moments when fear threatened to overwhelm them. But there was also laughter, and Saturday morning pancakes, and Emma's artwork covering every surface of their house. There was partnership and trust and the deep certainty that they'd chosen well. "Remember when you slept on my couch?" Maya said, leaning into Daniel's side. "I remember you looking at me like I was insane." "You kind of were. Who turns down a bed to sleep on a too small couch?" "Someone who knew even then that you were worth doing things right." Daniel kissed the top of her head. "Best decision I ever made." "Second best," Maya corrected. "First was offering me a ride home during that storm." "Fair point." Emma ran over, breathless and grinning. "Daddy, Maya, come play tag with us." "In a minute, sweetheart," Daniel said. "You always say in a minute and then you stand here being mushy," Emma complained, but she was smiling. "Is that so terrible? Us being mushy?" Emma pretended to think about it. "I guess not. Sophia says her parents don't even like each other anymore, so I guess mushy is better than that." "Much better," Maya agreed, holding out her hand to Emma. "Come on, let's go show them how tag is really played." Daniel watched his daughter and the woman he loved run off together, their laughter bright in the afternoon sun, and felt something settle in his chest, contentment, maybe, or just the deep satisfaction of having built exactly the life he wanted. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Family dinner Sunday? Marcus wants to grill. Daniel typed back, "We'll be there." Because that was the thing about family. It showed up. It stayed. It grew and changed and adapted, but at its core, it remained constant. And standing in his backyard watching Emma and Maya play while the sun set over Portland, Daniel thought about all the moments that had led here. A storm. A ride home. A couch he'd refused to sleep on because he'd known even then that Maya Collins was worth doing things right. Every choice, every risk, every moment of vulnerability had built toward this. A life full of love and laughter, and the deep certainty that they'd chosen each other and kept choosing each other every single day. Not because it was easy, not because it was simple, but because some people are worth the complications, worth the risks, worth building a whole life around. And as Maya caught his eye across the yard and smiled, that real, unguarded smile she'd learned to wear more often, Daniel smiled back and thought about purple dinosaur drawings and Saturday morning pancakes and the beautiful, ordinary miracle of coming home to people who loved you completely. He'd spent 3 years learning to survive alone. But with Maya and Emma, he'd finally learned to live. And that, Daniel thought, was worth every storm.